After testing Ange extensively, I realized something weird. Futaba actually buffs more than Ange. But why is Ange still better overall? So in this video, I'm gonna go over her kit, best cards and rotations, compare her against Futaba, talk about whether her weapon and A1 are worth pulling, and finally answer the question, is Ange actually a must pull? So as always, let's go through the kit first. So at A0, after each ally moves, she gains 1 musical note stack and can stack up 12 times. Then at any ally action, you can activate the capo, and the capo will rewind the turn, so it allows your DPS to do another hit of damage. Sadly, this the capo does not recharge the highlight, and the capo does recharge after 7 actions, excluding extra action. So basically, in a regular 6-turn rotation, you can only use the capo 1 time. On top of the turn rewind, the capo also removes 1 debuff from the ally. The skill 1 increases party's damage for 2 turns, and you also gain 4 musical note stacks. The skill 2 will heal your party's HP and remove a debuff. She will also spend musical note stacks, then reduce the cooldown of this skill. So 1 musical note stack is 1 action cooldown, up to 4. If this skill is selected manually, the healing will increase to 50%. The regular cooldown is 8 actions, but it becomes 4 if you use it manually and you have 4 musical note stacks. As for the automatic effect, it activates every 12 musical note stacks gained, which is basically every 2 turns, if you follow a regular rotation for Ange. The skill 3 buffs attack, and also pierce rate depending on her attack, as well as the musical note stack spent, and this lasts for 2 turns. The first passive increases attack of allies during the da capo by 37.5%. The second passive increases pierce rate for the party based on the number of musical note stacks gained, up to 12 stacks, and this effect is permanent. The Fusa weapon increases her attack, that increases her own attack even more after she uses a skill, and can stack up to 2 times. The Fusa weapon also increases her own attack, and then for each musical note gained, she grants Angelic Chorus to all allies. This can stack up to 12 times and permanently increases damage, and when you get to 12 stacks, you increase crit damage. Moving on to her awareness. For A1, at the start of battle, she will gain the maximum number of musical note stacks, then reduce the first cooldown by 4 actions. This basically allows you to immediately use a skill on the very first action. Then when you use a skill 3, you increase party's crit rate by 12% for 2 turns. The A2 will increase final damage for allies with extra action from the da capo by 12%. She will also have a revive when your allies die once per battle. For A4, at the start of battle, when an ally activates a highlight, you gain 2 musical note stacks, and this can exceed the maximum limit up to 2 times. At A6, she can use the capo 1 more time, so instead of 1, it becomes 2 times. For her cards, her best card is definitely Hope and Labor. Gives you 5% pierce after using a skill, and this, for some reason, it says your main target's pierce rate, but it actually buffs pierce rate for the entire team. I don't know why, it's one of those weird wordings in the game. If you have enough pierce already, you can actually just run Integrity Labor instead. Integrity Labor gives you more stat buffs depending on the number of same elements on the team. So you get like 2% more per matching attribute, and that also includes Wonders Persona. As for rotation, rather simple. A0 is going to be 1-3, 1-3-1. First turn you don't use anything because on cooldown. If it's A1 plus, you do 3-1, 3-1, 3-1, because you can use a skill 3 at the start, because there's no cooldown. And for da capo, you just use it on the biggest damage turn, typically on turn 6. As for teams, she literally works with any DPS really. The very few DPS that Ange isn't the best for is going to be someone like Kasumi. Kasumi might have the least synergy with Ange. Maybe Fox as well. Most DPS works well, because I mean Ange is a very general navigator, general buffer. She can enable any DPS. I'll explain why Kasumi isn't the best combo for Ange later on. Now let's move on to a weapon. I honestly don't really have much to say here, other than it's a good weapon overall. Gives you crit damage, gives you buffs. And she's a navigator, so the weapon overall has good value. And I do recommend getting. How worth it is the A1? So A1 allows you to use a skill 3 immediately at the start, so it allows the DPS to do big damage sooner. But I think that's not really the real reason why the A1 is good. The reason why it's good is the crit rate. Gives you free 12% crit rate. Allows you to reach the cap easier. Allows you to maybe skip a Rebellion, replace with Tarukaja, or change your crit rate card to a crit multiplier card, which gives you more crit multiplier, obviously. But how much does it actually matter in a full 6-turn fight? I will say that overall, the A1 is good. It's a good A1 to pick up if you have extra gems. You can see that these are pretty respectable numbers, can go up to 14%. This one I think is because I have a lot of crit multiplier cards, so I was able to swap the cards to buff myself even more. So that's why it's very high. But it has potential to be quite good. And again, I think the reason is because of the extra crit rate. Here's the interesting thing. Futaba actually buffs more than Ange. If you test both of them, you'll notice that the damage your DPS does is actually higher for Futaba. However, Ange is still generally better because she allows your DPS to do extra hit with the couple. If you look at the data here, Ange is pretty much better for almost all the teams. There's definitely going to be some DPS that likes Ange more than others. For example, if you see this Kasumi team here, you'll see that it's only 6.6%. It's not a big increase compared to, let's say, a Haru team here, almost 21%. So my theory is that the more times you do big damage, the less impact Ange becomes. Kasumi, with Code, does 4 highlights total in 6 turns. Haru only does 2 times in 6 turns, which is why Haru benefits Ange more, because from 2 to 3 is a much bigger increase than Kasumi's 4 to 5. So to test my theory, I use A6 Kasumi and A6 Haru. A6 Kasumi does 6 highlights total, including Code, and you will see that the result actually is very interesting. Futaba is better than Ange for A6 Kasumi, although slightly, but you get the point. Meanwhile, if you look at A6 Haru, A6 Haru does more damage with gun, which means that there's a higher increase here. The value for Ange is even better for A6 Haru. You can see that 20.6 goes up to 27.1. That is quite a jump. So this pretty much confirms my theory that the more times we do big damage, the less valuable Ange becomes. And if you look at DOD, for example, Devourer of Dreams, the weakened state guild boss, the damage to percentage increase is even higher. Devourer of Dreams, only 2 turns matter. 1 of the turns, you already do big damage. For example, like a Haru gun, then you're gonna use it again. So that's like doubling your overall damage, if that makes sense. So Devourer of Dreams become even better for Ange. So now on to a section talking about my experience with Ange. The good, the bad, what I like, what I dislike. So I don't have too many things to say here, because generally I think Ange is quite a straightforward character to use. Very simple to use, quite easy to understand. But I do have 2 bad things I want to say about her. Is that her only downside is that she will not be as good for DPSs that do multiple big hits, like I demonstrated just now with Kasumi and Code. One more bad thing I want to say, so if you rewind a turn, you don't rewind the highlight, which I think is a fair thing to not do, because you can, I mean, she's gonna be even broken if you can somehow rewind the highlights. She's gonna be extremely broken actually. So I understand why they didn't do it. As for the good things, well, first of all, she's a navigator. You are only getting 1 more navigator in the future, so that makes her quite valuable. But auto skill 2, I think I have to give it a little bit of credit, because it gives you some sustain. It makes running sustainless more bearable. And finally, this is more of like a pro tip than a good thing, I guess, is that Ange pairs well with the persona Dominion, because Dominion's Overclock allows you to do more damage for the next 2 hits, and with the capo, you do a second hit. So that means if you put Wonder on the 3rd in action, you can use like a Cohesion, then your DPS is gonna do 2 hits, including Ange's the capo, and you will use both of Dominion's stacks, which is called the Commandment stack. So finally, is Ange actually worth pulling, and is Ange a must pull? So Ange is the best navigator in the game in like 95% of teams, so most of the teams. And navigators are also very rare in the game, and we are only getting 1 more in the future. The fact that she's the best navigator, and you need a navigator for every team, that makes her value really high, and I really highly recommend getting at least A0R0. So for the final pull rating for Ange, 9 out of 10.